You're alive. Are you live? Are we live? Hello. I can't tell if this thing is. I can never tell if these things have sound going. I don't know how people check that without opening a another window to check it and see if it's actually coming true. But I think so.
But I think so.
Oh, hey, Miss C. You could have saved me from having to open up another window to hear an echo. So, what are we doing? Well, I was bored as hell, and I decided to come on and give a lesson in how to be live and while you're having a bad hair day and what to do about that. Actually, I'm kidding. I am having a bad hair day, but that's not what we're going to discuss. You can laugh at that on your own. Um, Welcome to my channel. My name is Russell, and this is my horror movie and heavy metal channel. Mostly, I talk about heavy metal music, but of course, I listen to grunge, post grunge, punk, pop punk, post punk, and hard aggressive rock. And movies, I mostly talk about horror movies. My collection is probably 65, 70% pure horror movies, but Um, what are you laughing at, Missy? But I also like, just like I like different genres of music besides heavy metal, I also like different genres of movies. I'm a cinephile. So the other 30% of my collection, hey, Caleb, I guess, the Dark Ether Files podcast, what are you doing? I do not know how to pull up those things. Um, but yeah, so I also listen to other genres. Watch other genres of movies, dramas, classics, sci-fi, and action. Fill out the rest of my, fill out the rest of my collection. And tonight, I want to do my first classic spotlight. This is one of my like, if you cut out Betty Davis, if you cut out Betty Davis, this would probably be one of my top five classic movies of all time, if not it might even still be one of my top five classic movies, even if you leave Betty Davis in. But it's Reflections in a Golden Eye. Now, this movie is quite shocking, actually. Elizabeth Taylor was really good at doing shocking movies. She was definitely not a goody two shoes as people think she is, but Marlon Brando and Elizabeth Taylor in Reflections in a Golden Eye, one of my top five classic movies of all time. This is a John Huston movie, which is one of the greatest directors ever. And he was not exactly known for his subtlety and lack of controversy either. And this movie is quite controversial, and you'll hear about it. If you don't know about this movie, you will definitely hear and kind of might even be shocked. I mean, granted, it's not 1950, but still 1967. This movie was quite shocking. If you go down and look at the trailer, if you go down and look at the trailer, you will see that I like that at the end of the trailer they say suggested for mature audiences. Leave your kids at home. Yeah, yeah, that's an understatement. This movie was released in 1967. It stars Elizabeth Taylor, Marlon Brando, Brian Keith, Julie Harris, and Robert Forster. I didn't even have to look that up. Um, because I've seen it so many times. And I don't have any notes either. People know I usually have notes that I check to make sure I don't miss anything. I don't really need notes with this, but um, this is a very, very shocking movie or controversial movie. First of all, let's see what's some little cool things about it. One is that the original version, which is what I have here, was filmed with a sepia filter. Now, if you don't know what that is, sepia is like what the if you remember seeing like old photographs from like 1920s and stuff like that, they have this golden yellow tint to them. And if you ever look at like really classic photographs, well, this movie has a classic sepia yellow film over it. It doesn't really bother you, but you can see it. And so that's kind of neat that the movie was filmed. Miss C says, I think you talked about this before, if I'm right. You said one of the characters was a closeted gay man. I may have mentioned it, but I haven't done a video on it unless I have completely lost my mind. But I haven't done a video on it. Have I? I don't think so. I may have talked to you about it, Miss C. But yeah, so that's one of the neat things about this movie is that it was filmed with a sepia filter. Now, because the American or the public at large doesn't like artsy and new stuff, there was a little backlash. So they did release a version of the movie that did not have the yellow film, but I wanted the original release of it. So, yeah, I like it. I like the sepia filter. But it's got like I told you the people who star in it, so it's got some really big names: Julie Harris and Brian Keith and Elizabeth Taylor and Marlon Brando. But yeah, they this movie is about Marlon Brando's character, and he is a colonel, like he is the top dog. Yeah, I think I did mention it in a video, but this is the actual discussion about it. And anything else y'all want to ask or talk about, we'll talk about that too. After all, it is live. So, yeah, Marlon Brando is the top dog. Now, another interesting thing about this movie is that Elizabeth Taylor had this movie specially written. Okay. She's the one who had it adapted to the screen, and she did it for her friend, Montgomery Clift. Now, Montgomery Clift had been spiraling into alcoholism after a car wreck, and he had had several years in which he was going downhill. And since him and Elizabeth Taylor were, best friends, Elizabeth Taylor and her gay boys, she was always surrounded by gay boys. She loved her gay guys. Um, Marlon Brando was fantastic. Dark Aether says I loved him in Superman. Yeah, Marlon Brando was fantastic in Superman. But Montgomery Clift was supposed to play the closeted gay colonel, which is quite fitting, right? But they found him dead. Right before this movie started filming, they found him dead in his apartment. So Marlon Brando, quite fitting as well, right? Was brought in to play the closeted gay guy. Now Elizabeth Taylor is his wife in this movie. They She knows that he's gay, and they have this understanding, and she gets away with the things that she does because she's like, you know, I'm your trophy wife, you're my trophy husband, but I'm going to go and do whatever I want to do, such as carrying on a long-term affair with his subordinate, Brian Keith, and you can't say anything about it. So there's that tension going on. Brian Keith is married to Julie Harris, and she is kind of crazy from having lost a child. So he's having to deal with Julie Harris, who is completely frigid and kind of PTSD, while he's having an affair with Elizabeth Taylor, who, well, I mean, she can't get anything from home. So she's having an affair with him. So it's sort of like this little foursome, and everything is working fine. The only problem is that Marlon Brando is real. I think you would call him, well, you know, the kind of roles Elizabeth Taylor plays. She plays very catty, very bitchy roles. So he's the quiet one. Marlon Brando, of course. But Marlon Brando is very goody two shoes. So he cannot stand her behavior because she's very flirtatious with all the soldiers. She's very catty because they live on the military base. And he is all straight laced and very uptight. And of course, they do not and have never. They have separate rooms. They've never engaged. It's a totally arranged marriage. So there's not any of that going on. Yet she's very possessive of him because she's the colonel's wife. So her position is attached to him. And of course, he's very, you know, I wouldn't say possessive, more like watchful of everything she does because she's embarrassing to him, but he needs a trophy wife. So they sort of have this standoff between each other. Now, along comes Robert Forster. Now, Robert Forster plays Cadet Williams, and he is very strange. I mean, that boy, I don't think he has 10 words in the whole movie. He's very strange. He's a very, very weird character. And Marlon Brando falls in love with him and begins to sort of stalk him, while at the same time it appears that this soldier is also returning the affection. Um, this is 1967, so there is no contact, but they sort of dance around each other. He's watching the soldier, and the soldier's watching him, but you never really know why or what's going on. So as this all continues, Marlon Brando is kind of like having a breakdown because he can't handle his feelings. She is getting worse and worse with her controlling behavior. So you can imagine what that's like with Elizabeth Taylor being pissed off. And he begins to perceive a relationship with this soldier that's not there. And there is a great deal of scene. One of the most famous scenes in this movie is when Marlon Brando, because you can imagine what Elizabeth Taylor is doing to him. I mean, I'm your trophy wife, and you're a little gay boy who can't get what you want. So if you don't give me what I want and treat me she's always needling him. This movie is known for Elizabeth Taylor's only nude scene because Elizabeth Taylor, if you know, people don't know, actually did a nude scene for this movie. She takes all of her clothes off and walks up the stairs in front of Marlon Brando after berating him and telling him that if he didn't act and stop, act straight and stop bothering her, that she was going to drag him out into the street and horsewhip him naked. And to prove that point, she took off all of her clothes and walked upstairs completely naked. So Elizabeth Taylor does a nude scene. So it's known for that. And the soldier is outside watching because during this time, you started to notice that the soldier, which is why Brando is thinking the soldier wants him, is because this soldier is kind of like stalking their house. and he's always hiding in the bushes and he's watching, and you can't really tell whether he's like watching her or watching him. John Huston never really lets you know. What John Huston does let you know, however, is exactly all of Robert Forster's business, because this movie has a great deal of nudity of Robert Forster, the soldier. Not only does Elizabeth Taylor do a nude scene, this is 1967, remember, but the soldier is constantly hanging out in the woods naked. And when Brando takes her favorite stallion that she berated him with, because she's always saying that her stallion, her horse, is more of a stallion than he is, another jab at him being gay. And he takes the horse out to try to ride at full speed. He starts hitting the horse throws him, all kind of stuff happens, and then you see the soldier walk out of the bushes with Brando on the ground having a breakdown after he's hurt this horse. And he is completely naked, and he walks right, I mean, he literally steps over Marlon Brando, and he's completely naked. And Brando just stares at him while he goes and gets the horse, gets on it, and starts riding it back, where he medicates and doctors the horse back at the stable. Elizabeth Taylor at the party that night finds out that her horse has been harmed by him, by Brando, and in front of the entire party, she walks in, literally. This movie and me are the same age. I was born in 67, says Miss C. You may have not wanted me to say that out loud, did you? However, it's in the chat and everybody can see it, so I take no slack for that. But so she actually walks out in front of all of his subordinates, right? All of the captains and the generals in this big giant party. She walks out literally with a horsewhip and beats the absolute shit out of Marlon Brando with the whip in front of everyone while berating him. And of course, he's doing nothing. So that was another really shocking scene that this movie was known for, was her beating the hell out of Marlon Brando in front of everybody. So, oh, I know, Miss C. You look great just like you are. There's no reason to care. Age is a state of mind. Um, Dolly Parton says that the most irritating thing about life is that time marches on. And unfortunately, it marches across your face. That's her favorite saying. So I kind of agree with that. You have to fight. You have to fight it. But so as we get closer to the end of the movie, Marlon Brando has, like I said, he's been. It is a state of mind, but he has been like uh, getting more and more overt with the um, way he's been looking at the soldier, and especially after the nude stuff in the woods, I think Brando thought this guy does like me. So he's actually thinks that the soldier is flirting with him. And who knows? Maybe the soldier is flirting him. Damn, John Huston does not fucking let you know, right? So Brando that night goes back after this long runaround with the soldier where they're doing some kind of dance literally throughout the army barracks. He's following the soldier and the soldier's dropping little things and Brando is picking them up. The soldier's been spying on him, and the soldier actually sees that Brando has a secret drawer in his office cabinet. And when he looks in it, there's pictures or 1967's version of Muscle Guys, you know, and his. So the soldier knows. John Huston, the director, has let you know that the soldier knows, and Now Brando knows that this guy knows. So Brando starts thinking that this guy is finally going to come be with him, come get him. So it's in the middle of the night, and he actually goes back home now and awaits his crush to come to him. Well, John Huston made it very, his directing was phenomenal because you never really knew what the intentions of the soldier was, and you never find out because Brando knows that he's coming in the door downstairs. But the soldier thinks that he's doing his usual, which is he creeps into the house in the middle of the night and he watches Brando sleep, has been watching Brando sleep, but then he goes into the wife's room and he fiddles with her clothes. He doesn't mess with her. He doesn't stare at her. He doesn't make any sexual innuendos towards her, but he messes with her clothes. He likes to play with her stockings and her panties and stuff. So you never really understand what in the hell is this soldier's problem. I mean, is he like drag or what? Hello, Kyle. How are you doing? But yeah, he doesn't really understand. You don't understand what is the soldier's deal. And so Brando is sitting upstairs in his room. He hears him come in the door downstairs. He thinks his love is coming to get him. And he he hears a door open and realizes that the soldier did not come into his room where he was waiting for him, but went into his wife's room. So he goes across the hall, opens the door. She's asleep on the bed. The soldier is on the floor playing with one of her nightgowns, and Brando shoots him dead in the middle of the floor. He flicks on the light. The soldier is in the middle of the floor playing with one of her nightgowns, and he shoots him dead at the betrayal that he didn't come into his room like he expected, but was in his wife's room. So he shoots him dead on the floor, and you're left to wonder what in the absolute fuck was that soldier doing? He didn't have a crush on her. And unfortunately for Brando, he didn't have a crush on him, which is what Brando thought. He just wanted to play with her lingerie. So you are left wondering what the hell was all this about? But what you do get out of it, what John Huston, the director, was trying to say was that due to her behavior, her life was a shambles, a joke. Due to the closet nature of Brando, his life was a joke. And being in the closet was so wrong because he actually this poor soldier who obviously had some kind of mental issues, maybe he who knows what his issues were. Playing in the woods naked, stealing their horses to ride around the woods naked, walking over Brando naked, letting Brando follow him around like a tease, but never say nothing, breaking into their house to watch Brando sleep and to play with the wife's lingerie. But Brando was so offended that his crush didn't come into his room and finally realized their passion that he goes across the hall. He was so offended that he thought, because he was always jealous of Elizabeth Taylor, of course, because she had men all around her all the time. And him being a closet gay guy was very jealous of her. So he was jealous of his wife, who had no idea this soldier even existed. And because he was so offended that he was so wrong, that the soldier didn't come into his room and finally realize the passion that he had made up in his head. He shoots the boy dead. And that's how the movie ends, to let you deal with your thoughts and questions about Reflections in a Golden Eye. So, I absolutely love this movie. It's one of my top five classic movies of all time. I told you some of the really cool trivia about it. Not that Montgomery Clift is one of my favorite classic actors, if not the, besides James Dean. So I wasn't saying it's wonderful that he died, but that it's, that is a neat trivia thing. This movie was actually written for him, specifically for him, and he dies a month before it starts. Brando takes over, which was a good choice considering we all know what Brando was. And Elizabeth Taylor is, of course, absolutely glorious in this movie. And yeah, very, very shocking subject matter, very shocking scenes. I'm sure that the audience wasn't prepared to see, Elizabeth Taylor do a nude scene. I'm sure that they weren't prepared for Robert Forster to do so much nudity in the movie. So you have a lot of nudity. You have extremely, extremely adult, controversial themes. You're talking about a gay military colonel in 1967. You're making a movie about that, and you're making a movie about her being a complete control freak and abusing. So not only was she promiscuous, but she was a domestic abuser. She domestically abused her husband, both psychologically and physically. So you have a movie in 1967 dealing with closeted gay guy, male victim of domestic abuse, crushes, murder, mental breakdowns, Elizabeth Taylor doing a nude scene, the guy doing a nude scene. It's definitely, or a bunch of nude scenes actually. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Miss C says one of my favorite old Elizabeth Taylor movies is Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I have that, and Cleopatra, and Suddenly Last Summer, and Butterfield 8. I love Elizabeth Taylor. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Um, but Cat on a Hot Tin Roof is interesting because Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was made in the 50s. Now, they weren't able to do what they did in this. But in case you don't know, Miss C, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was written by the same guy, Tennessee Williams, who was gay. And Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was, highly edited because it was the 1950s. Um, if you've seen the movie, you know what it's about, and you know it's supposedly about Brick's alcoholism. But the actual story, and it was later remade by Rip Torn, played the father, and Tommy Lee Jones played Brick, and Jessica Lange played Maggie the cat. And they put all the stuff back in the movie that was taken out in the 50s. And that was Brick's problem wasn't just alcoholism. His best friend didn't commit suicide because of alcoholism. His best friend committed suicide because he was in love with Brick. And that's why Brick became an alcoholic, was because he discovered that his friend committed suicide over him, over his love for him. It was controversial, but it was controversial because it addressed the issue of alcoholism. When if they had did the whole story, which is what Jessica Lange's version does, the whole story, it would have been too much for the audience because it was also about gay people. His best friend was gay, committed suicide because he couldn't have Brick, because Brick rejected him, only because he was shocked And that drove Brick to become an alcoholic, and ruin his football career and become an alcoholic, because he would have never rejected him. He was just shocked. And all he did was reject him that one time when he first found out. And when he went to make up with him and to tell him that it was all right, that he was in love with him, he had killed himself. So Brick lost his mind and turned into an alcoholic because he blamed himself for his friend's suicide. So that's the real story of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And they took all of that part out for the 50s, but they put it back in Jessica Lange's version, which is phenomenal. Um, so, yeah, they are kind of similar, these two movies, if you include all of the stuff in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Elizabeth Taylor also did another gay themed movie called Suddenly Last Summer, which stars Katharine Hepburn and Montgomery Clift, where she plays the cousin of a gay guy who used her and his mother to procure men on vacations around the world. This was also in the 50s. That movie, no, it might have been the early 60s. But that movie wasn't cut out as much. That movie left the controversial stuff in, but they still kept it very vague. And it's called Suddenly Last Summer. And the mother is so determined to keep that secret from coming out that she procured men for her son. And then when she got too old, he began to get his cousin, played by Elizabeth Taylor, to go on vacations with him to procure men for him. Um, the mother is trying to have Elizabeth Taylor lobotomized by a doctor played by Montgomery Clift, um, to keep that secret from coming out. And the reason it's a secret is because Sebastian is dead. He was killed by a mob because he liked to go into men's bathrooms and the beaches and pay people money. So, Suddenly Last Summer is a pretty controversial movie as well, because you're dealing with Katharine Hepburn trying to have Elizabeth Taylor lobotomized by a doctor who doesn't believe she needs to be lobotomized, all to try to protect the secret of her dead son. And that is that he used his mother, his own mother, and his own cousin as pimps to get men for him when he was on vacation. So, believe it or not, a lot of people these days who watch, movies made now, modern movies, really have no idea how controversial. They hear classic movies and they think Gone with the Wind. Um, you really have no idea how many seriously controversial movies there are that were made before 1970. Some of the movies from the 40s and the 50s and the 60s have very, very, very controversial themes in them. To get around the Hays Code, they just veiled them. They were very subtle, but if you know what to look for, you know what they're talking about. So, yeah, I mean, there's a list a mile long of very controversial movies. And that was because of the Hays Code. Remember, prior to the Hays Code, you can go back and find movies from the 20s and 30s, after talkies began. There was no rating system, okay, until the Hays Code in the 40s. There was no rating system. So you can go back to movies from the 20s and 30s and 40s, early 40s, before the Hays Code went into effect. You can go back and find movies that are filled with very controversial topics. Um, the silent version of Cleopatra, which Elizabeth Taylor later redid, starring Theda Bara. That movie is absolutely full of nudity, orgy scenes, all kinds of stuff like that. I've got a Mae West movie that's got a lot of male nudity in it that was made before the Hays Code. So that's some things that people don't really know about the history of cinema is that prior to the Hays Code, there was lots of nudity, lots of drinking, lots of drugs, lots of stuff like that in movies that made all of the uptight Americans get so upset for seeing this rampant Hollywood hedonism that that's how the Hays Code came into effect. Then all of a sudden, you couldn't show any of that anymore. But if you know where to go look, and you can find movies from the 30s and the 20s that are chock full of murder, blood, gore, um, nudity, controversial topics. Yeah, so that's a little bit about the history. Film noir, yeah, film noir is, well, actually, as a genre, film noir is a certain type of filming, the way that you film a movie. It was really, really popular in the mid to late 40s, is film noir, and early 50s. That's when it was at its heyday. But yeah, film noir is right during and before, right, right before, during, and after the Hays Code was put into place. But after the Hays Code was put into place, we had 20 years where you couldn't get away with shit. You know, any kind of sin or bad thing that you did had to be punished in the movie. Um, that's why Betty Davis dies, and that's why Betty Davis ends up with nothing in the Scarlet Letter. Yeah, so I mean, the Hays Code was crazy. People who talk about the horror movie trend of the late 80s, I mean, not the late 80s, when did it start? It started like right during Columbine and right before that, such as there was a period where horror movies were cut to hell. Like a lot of the middle Friday the 13th movies was slashed up. So much was cut out of those movies. People think that that was something new, but actually, that was a repeat of what happened in the 40s with the Hays Code. Yeah, Caleb says, didn't the Hays Code affect the classic Universal monster films too? Yeah, it affected everything. I mean, they went crazy because of the nudity and the gore and um, the horror movies from the 30s and stuff like that. There was, I guess, only people who really went, I guess, people who really don't pay attention to classic movies don't know this kind of stuff. But yeah, before the 40s, before the Hays Code, the movies were like WTF, you know? I mean, I've got one sitting right there that I watched a while ago. Um, it's called The State of Beauty or something like that. But it's just a drama. But I like to watch it because it's got this really cool baseball locker room scene that's just absolutely full of naked guys running around. And you're like, what? This movie was made in what? 1932? I didn't know that they had like nudity in 1932. Trust me, they had nudity in 1932. They had a lot of nudity in 1932. And there's even places that you can go. I don't know the name of it, but I got the bookmark saved. There is a place like that horror movie list. What's the name of that horror movie list? The Dirty uh, Video Nasties. Um, they have one of those for classic movies, and it's got like a couple of hundred movies that have nudity, like the old Tarzan movies. Did you know that the old Tarzan movies from the 30s were full of nudity, male and female nudity? So, yeah, people that don't know classic movies might not know that. I love Betty Davis. She has played so many versatile roles. Betty Davis is my favorite. Joan Crawford is my second. Ann Baxter is my third. Moses. I love Ann Baxter and the Ten Commandments. And Charlton Heston. Don't get me started. But um, my favorite classic movie of all time is The Little Foxes, which stars Betty Davis. That's my favorite of all time. I love Beyond the Forest and All About Eve. Um, I've got a whole section for Betty Davis and Joan Crawford too. I love Mildred Pierce is my favorite Joan Crawford movie. But yeah, so when that stuff happened with the horror movies in the late '80s, when all of the sudden the Friday the 13th and everything was just like cut to shit, and all of the murders were taking place off screen, and people were like, wait a second, where the hell, where the hell is all the blood and gore in Friday the 13th, for God's sakes? Which one was like the worst? I think five and six were like cut to hell. Um, and you were like, what the hell? Where's all the blood and gore and stuff in Friday the 13th, part five and six? And that's that little period that happened where all the horror movies were like, we had another Hays Code explosion, is what happened. And all of the sudden, nudity and blood and gore was a big no-no. But this had happened before, and that's what cinephiles who have never paid attention to the classic movie era, if they had paid attention, they would have been able to go, "Oh shit! Well, I know what happened. This is the same thing that happened in the '40s when the Hays Code came about. Yeah, it happened again in the late '80s and early '90s." Caleb says that's crazy. I was aware there were some older films that had explicit content, but I didn't know it went that far. Yeah, it does. It did affect the Universal monsters too. They had to cut down on the scare factor. Things couldn't be too shocking. They had to cut out things that, like jump scares. If, the Hays Code, they would preview a film, and that the people that were on, you don't realize how much the Hays Code, that son of a bitch had a lot of control. Okay. He could single-handedly, my British is slipping in there. He could single-handedly kill a movie. Just him. He didn't even need the rest of the board. That asshole screwed up a lot of films for a good 20 years. And yeah, the Universal Monsters was hit really hard because they would preview the film, and if he jumped too hard, then he would call that. And I'm like, just because you're a pussy and it scared you, why do you think it's going to scare everybody else? But he would make them cut that out. If anything offended him, he would make it cut it out. And if anything offended people on the board, they could petition. And if he agreed with it, so you had directors threatening to leave Hollywood. You had producers, studio heads, studio executives who were going to the Hayes Code, to Hayes, what is his name, John Hayes? I'd have to look up his first name, but they would go to him and bribe him. He would take bribes to keep stuff in movies. Um, they would threaten to leave the country. The studios would threaten to not produce a film and take more of the theater take. They had to actually uh, fight the Hays Code on many occasions to get stuff left in movies. And that was the same thing that happened. So that's kind of what was interesting to me when the slasher slash began and they started cutting all of the good, because you see, we were used to The Burning and Sleepaway Camp and Friday the 13th. Yeah, part seven was cut all to hell. Sounds a lot like the PC culture BS happening today. It's spooky that history repeats itself. And nobody knows that unless you are a classic movie enthusiast or at least pay attention to them or give them a chance, or know anything about the classic movie industry, be that Marilyn Monroe, Betty Davis, Joan Crawford. If you've ever seen the movie Rain, which was Joan Crawford's first movie, that movie is extremely controversial because she plays basically a hooker, and that was pre Hayes Code. So the stuff that goes on in there is pretty wild. But yeah, it was their version of PC culture. It was the 1940s version of PC culture. And now we have the 2020, the 2010s version of PC culture. Because this doesn't just start in 2021. This new PC culture code going on right now, it didn't start this year. It's been going, it's been a good 8, 9, 10 years now that the PC culture has been creeping into our current cinema universe. Cinema Score was reviewing the Universal monster films. Exactly, yeah. They were they were really hard on horror movies of the time. That's the reason why you can't get, like, kids will watch like Universal horror movie, and unless they have been brought up and or have a cinemaphile sensibility, they won't like Frankenstein and Dracula and Wolfman, because they have been so used to seeing Friday the 13th. And one of the reasons was the Hays Code took so much of the scare factor out that the Universal monster films really are a genre of their own that is loved by specific fans for a specific reason, but it's certainly not because they scare the shit out of you. It's because they're such wonderful, well made movies. And the Hays Code was a lot. Like the original Frankenstein, if you go and read about what the Hays Code made them cut out and how they went through judging the jump scares and being careful not to put certain themes in it and things of that nature, it really does make you sick, and that's the reason I get upset. Like, I am furious about what they did to The Stand. The Stand, sitting over there somewhere. I just got the Blu-ray to replace my DVD set of The Stand. I was so excited when I found out that Whoopi Goldberg was going to be playing Mother Abigail and that they were doing a remake of The Stand. And I absolutely hate it. I was so disappointed. I was so upset because The Stand is one of my favorite, if not yeah, I would say The Stand is my favorite Stephen King book. And when you screw with something that's that important to me, yeah, there were lots of scenes in Frankenstein that were cut out. I love the Universal monster films, but I mean, I admit that they don't cause me fear. I love them for what they are, but they're just gorgeous movies. Everything about them is perfect. But I would have preferred if they had left this shit in that the Hays Code made them cut out. I think they would have been even better if they hadn't stuck their hands in it. But like I said about The Stand, when I started watching it and I found out, I'm like, who are these people? And it's like, where is he? And why is he the wrong color? And, the four main people that go to Las Vegas to fight Randall Flagg, one of them was changed into a girl. They changed the character's fucking gender. And the other was changed into a black guy. Why? This is The Stand is a work of art. It is a masterpiece. And the miniseries is a masterpiece of filmmaking. What gives you the right to do that to a masterpiece? If I was Stephen King, I'd have sued them if I had some way to do it. And he hated what they done to it, you know. And I that was so insulting. Black Christmas 2019, furious, just infuriates me. Renaming, making a remake of Prom Night. It's got nothing to do with it, but stealing the name and making it PG-13 and cutting all that good stuff out. Come on. So yeah, that was a scene that was cut out. Yeah, the girl being tossed in the lake. And what's bad about the Hayes Code era is that they did not retain stuff like we do today, where they can make director's cuts. So all of that footage, a lot of the footage of those movies that they messed with, those movies are lost because the film stock went bad, was lost, or destroyed, or thrown away. It didn't, because, think about it. There wasn't DVDs and Blu-rays. There wasn't even VHS. So it didn't occur to them that there would be what we today call a secondary market. That didn't exist in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. That didn't exist. So producers and studio companies did not take did not take into account that keeping the film stock that was cut out could be used later. In Frankenstein, when the doctor says the line, I know what it feels like to be God, they originally censored it by putting lightning over the dialogue because they said the line was sacrilegious. Exactly. Exactly. All they had to do to repair that, though, was redub the audio. You see, all they had to do to repair that is redub the audio. What about the stuff that they cut out and threw away? That's what infuriates me. What about the scenes from Frankenstein and Dracula and uh, you know the werewolf and all of that? What about all of that footage that because Hayes was a tight ass? What about all that footage that was thrown into the garbage? You know, any kind of if he thought that it was referencing a gay person, because there was a lot of that in the 30s movies too. Gays were everywhere in the 1930s films. You can find gays everywhere in the 1930s before the Hays Code. And you can find black people in non domestic roles in pre Hays Code movies. You can find black movies that were centered around black people. You can find black characters that were not stereotyped. You can find gay people that were not stereotyped. I mean, and the Hays Code did all of that as well. So it infuriates me that, I mean, they didn't have a time machine, so, or a crystal ball, so there's no way they could have known. But all of that stuff was thrown away. So all of the footage tracks, audio tracks, references, clips, edits. They were all thrown away because they had no idea that one day in the future there would be such a thing as VHS, DVD, Blu ray, 4K. They didn't know any of that. So we've actually lost all of that. And that's kind of infuriating. And I hate that they do that, that they're, like Caleb said a while ago, when he said it's, about history repeating itself. It's really sad that history repeats itself because you're putting out movies now that you are cutting up and you're not saving the stuff. At least a lot of them these days puts out a director's cut or an extended cut or an unrated cut. So we're in a lot better position. It is stupid, and you're right. They fixed that, and all they had to do to fix it was redub. If they couldn't remove the lightning sound, um, all they had to do was redub it, and so yeah, that's fixed. But all of the footage, actual scenes that were thrown away, you can never get those back. And I'm at least glad that although PC culture is destroying a lot of movies today, um, at least we have director's cuts, extended cuts. At least the directors and the studios and the producers, at least they saved the damn footage, which is one good thing. That is one good thing about it is that they saved the footage. I love Raisin in the Sun. Raisin in the Sun is a great movie. Who's Coming to Dinner is another great movie. But his my favorite movie of his, the actor that you're talking about, is In the Heat of the Night. Have you seen In the Heat of the Night? His name escapes me at the moment. The guy from Raisin in the Sun and the black guy from Raisin in the Sun and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Sidney Poitier. Got it before anyone could say it. my favorite my favorite movie of his is In the Heat of the Night. I watch that like once a month because it's just one of those relaxing movies. Everybody's got that little list of relaxation movies that they put on, and you don't even really have to watch it. You kind of just hearing the voices and the soundtrack and the exchanges just relaxes you. It's sort of like, of course, maybe you have to be a movie nut to experience this, but there are shows and movies that I can put on that I watch while I'm not watching, but I am watching because I've seen it 100 times. And it's very relaxing to just hear the voices of Sidney Poitier in the heat of the night. So I watch that movie a lot. You should really check that out, Miss C, if you haven't seen In the Heat of the Night with Sidney Poitier. You really should. And yeah, I enjoyed the chat, Caleb. Caleb had a podcast. I even said something about it. Yeah, and the Heat of the Night is phenomenal. I watch that once a month at least. I actually keep a file on my computer of the movie so I don't have to look for it, and I can just click and pop it on. So I love that movie. But Caleb had that PC War on Culture. Um, I hope it goes all right. um, I'll admit I did tell someone about it, Caleb. Very much. Everything about In the Heat of the Night is fantastic. But like I said, I did tell someone, Caleb, about your new series that you're doing, the War on Pop Culture. And I will admit something. I did tell someone that I thought you were very brave because you can get in trouble. I can tell from that first episode, you might find yourself in some trouble. And what I mean by that is that messing with subjects like that um, could probably, it might cause some people to like not know what to do, you know. So I think you're brave for doing that. I like to do that, but I don't know if I would do it on my channel because I wouldn't want to face the possibilities. Yeah, and I'm being honest with you. I mean, that's why I said I admit I did tell someone about it, and I was like, I don't know if that's a wise thing to do, um, because that can be ugly, or that could turn out ugly. Well, now the truth is, what I said was, I hope. What I said was, I hope that he is a good narrator, a good commentator. I don't know him very well. That's what I told the person. I was like, I don't know Caleb very well. I really like his channel. He's very chatty, like I am. I really like his channel. And then I saw that and I went there and it was very interesting to me. But I don't know him well enough to know if he's a good enough commentator and balancer to be able to pull it off without receiving a bunch of hate or backlash. Because even as open minded as I am, I was I was ready to jump that other guy, your other friend that you had on there, your guest, not Carter, the other guy. And the reason was, and that was another thing I said, was a few days ago when you did the Ghostbusters watch along, he said something in the chat, and so I recognized his name when he was up there on your guest. I recognized his name. See, I'm chatty like you. I'll do it in public too. But he said something in the chat that really offended me. And I didn't know that you knew him. But when I came to your first episode, he was up there in the corner. And I actually didn't see it at first. It's just why I said hello to you and Carter. And then when I noticed there was another person there, I saw the name and I was like, isn't that the guy in the chat the other night that I was kind of shocked about what he said? And so I really didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react to his presence. And a couple of things that he said, not you, but a couple of things that he said to had me ready to go, excuse me. Can I talk about that for a second? Can I expand on that for just a second here now? So yeah. So anyway, what I mean by all of that is that yeah, I did kind of think, well, I don't know Caleb well enough to know, but I think he may be, and so that would be cool because I would really love to talk about those subjects. And I just hope you're a good enough commentator and balanced, please. That's all I would ask is to be balanced because that could turn into some right wing accusations, and that wouldn't be good. So, yeah. But I can't wait to see more. Um, I'd actually love to be on one, but then I'm scared to do that kind of stuff because if I start running my mouth, I'm scared that I'll say something that will make people like hate my guts or something. I don't know. So you're very brave. I mean, anybody who's watched a lot of my movie reviews will see I'm not afraid to say stuff. I have seen To Sir with Love. I've never seen. To Sir with Love, Rusty, but I have seen To Sir with Love. That's a little. Didn't does that have a little romance in it? I'm not sure if that has any romance in it or not. To Sir with Love. Is that the one about the kids' school at the school? To Sir with Love. Yeah, I had to look it up. Yeah, that's the one where he's at the British school. Yeah, yeah, I've seen that several times. Caleb says, "Yeah, that's actually my dad, and you're more than welcome to come on. It's healthy to have people on who disagree. It keeps you in shape in regards to defending your views." Yeah, yeah, and I am very. I might not be in shape in some other ways, but as far as speaking my views and defending them and not playing too much with it, I'm definitely. Well, you have to remember, I was a religious cult victims counselor. I've been a political activist. So, for my people, I was a political activist for a long time, getting the equality that we have now. Um, I knew Gavin Newsom, who is currently the governor of California. I was actually in a discussion group with him 10 years ago, um, when he was just the mayor of San Francisco. I was, I actually knew him personally, Gavin Newsom, in this group that we were in. It was a Yahoo group, a political Yahoo group. And so I've been a political activist. Um, I don't do that as much in the last 10 years, but yeah. Wait a second. You know what? I didn't pay attention to what you just said. That was your dad? Oh my God. See? Okay. Wow. Oops. No offense. See, that's what I mean about me just keeping my mouth shut. Because I can't believe that was your dad. Oh my goodness. He upset me the other night. um, I don't know if you remember it, but because you didn't like mention it in the chat, but he said something and I think I said WTF. I think that's all that I said in it. And then I moved on because you didn't mention it. But I thought I thought he was a troll at that time because he came up and said a few things and then you didn't say nothing, you didn't acknowledge it. So I thought it was a troll and I said something like WTF because I couldn't believe what he wrote, and then you didn't mention it. So I moved on and we just continued talking about the movie. So when I saw him again in your episode, yeah, I was like, just seeing his name, you know like um like the fish betas, Siamese fighting fish. All they have to do is see that other fish in the other bowl, and they immediately, do that. Or the cat. or the dog that the hair stands up and you're like, they're ready. Just saying his name, I felt my hair stand up because I'm like, this is going to be fun. I'm going to make this fun. I'm going to make this fun by pretending that I don't listen to anything. Because who is this guy? But yeah, but sorry about that. I didn't know that that was your actual physical father. And oh my God, you are brave because I would never have my dad on here. My dad would get my channel banned, number one. And then we'd probably end up in a fist fight in the floor in front of everybody on live camera. So, yeah, my dad and you're not going to see my dad on this stream. Oh my God. But yeah, you're very brave. You're a very, very brave person. I have even more respect for you now than I already did with you doing that episode. So yeah. But I mean, I'll be there as long as I'm awake and see them. But I can control myself. I didn't say nothing very much. Um, so I'm pretty good. I can control myself. But I just say it inside and pretend I said it out loud. Unless I've drank absinthe, at which point I'm going to think I said a lot of shit in my head, but I actually say it out loud. So it sort of gets reversed if I drink absinthe. But I did agree with most everything that you said in that episode. I think PC culture, and I'm a lefty. I am a progressive liberal, and yet most all of the progressive liberals that I know do not like PC culture. And that might be shocking because people think that we are. And I'm like, no, actually, I hate political correctness. Political correctness is dangerous. Political correctness is false. And political correctness hides the truth. And it puts this barrier in the way of the truth. And I don't like political correctness at all, you know. But at the same time, I like representation. I like equality. It just has to be done right. Black Christmas 2019 didn't do it right. It didn't do anything right. The stand infuriated me. There was no reason for that. And I know a lot of people don't have a lot of problem with the Captain Marvel, but that was one of the examples I used. I saw absolutely no purpose for that, and I got slapped with the hate like everyone else does if they dare say something. You know, if you dare say something about Captain Marvel, you are a misogynistic pig. And I'm like, yeah, right. I'm a lefty, gay, liberal poet, cinema nut, but I'm a misogynistic pig because I did not think they should make Captain Marvel a girl. Okay, all right. If you say so. Sucker punch. But okay, has anybody got anything else they want to say before I embarrass myself again? Um, I think that I think that the reason, I mean, I don't mind getting a little political. I think that the reason that a lot of people are mistaken is because there's one really big problem between left and right. And here's the really big problem. The right, the right wing is very, very loud. The left wing is so goody two shoes that they think taking the taking the high road they're so worried about taking the high road that they get shouted down by the right. So the right is okay for them to have Charlottesville and literal, literal skinheads waving Nazi flags. Um, that's all right. And if you dare say anything, then you are an oppressor. But if it's the other way around, then they're shocked because the left is supposed to be goody two shoe, beyond right and wrong. Hello, Bhakta. But um, so that ends up with them not knowing that the left is very diverse in itself. I I'm pro gun. I do not believe in abortions after 12 to 16 weeks. I'll accept 16, but not past that. I don't like political correctness. I don't like tokenism, which you said you were going to talk about. I don't like tokenism as long as someone really investigates the situation. Because, like you talked about Iceman, and and Carter mentioned Willow from Buffy. Neither one of those are tokenism, and I am perfectly able to prove it. Um, but I don't like tokenism if it's actual tokenism. T good in RPG 2. Are you doing the T Russell? My first name is, I don't like my first name. So actually on Facebook and other places, it's T Russell. Because I don't go by my first name. I go by my middle name. But yeah, there is a lot of left that would surprise you if you found out. As lefty as I may be, you would probably be quite shocked about some of my opinions. It's the left is stereotyped, and it's not true. I am pro death penalty. I am pro gun. I don't like abortion past 16 weeks. Um, whatever other issue you want to bring up, and the same with all of my friends. All of my friends are progressive. All of my family, except my dad, that would never get on this podcast for that reason, or podcast, or my channel. Um, we're all progressive, and we're all not what you think. you know, uh, so yeah, I think that it's very stereotyped. I've got my Gina Carrera movies right up there, and I think she let herself be hijacked, and I feel sad for her. You thought I was a cowboy? Did you think I was a cowboy? I don't know. Am I a cowboy? Now, why in the world would you think I was a cowboy? I can't imagine why you would think I was a cowboy. That just shocks me. Very little shocks me too. uh, but yeah, I I've got a closet full of those $100 Garth Brooks shirts. I like to freak people out. So I usually, of course, am dressed all heavy metal and skate punk. You know, I am a skate punk. But I do have a closet full of cowboy clothes. And every once in a while, I like to go full cowboy. I like to go full cowboy. There's pictures on my Facebook. And I like to freak people out. I like to make them go, but I thought you were a punk rocker. I like I am. That doesn't mean I can't dress like Clint Black every once in a while for a little change up. But yeah, I think the left is very, very. I think when someone sits down with a lefty, they might find themselves going, okay. Even I shut my dad up a lot, because my dad comes in and runs his he runs his Fox News mouth, and he's like, I bet you think this and I bet you think that. I can't talk like him because he's total redneck and I've got a British accent, so it don't work well. But and I turned around and go, actually, no, this is my thoughts, and he shuts up and goes away because he can't say nothing about it because he's like totally just assumed that I think a certain way when I don't think that way at all. You don't know why you thought I was a cowboy, huh? I do like a little country music, but it's got to be classic country, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, stuff like that. I don't this crap this country music died in like 1994. Yeah, Fox News is like, if I was going to unleash Captain Trips from the stand, it would be in the lobby of Fox News. That's where I would just want to see them go first, even if I was also killed by Captain Trips in the stand. Um, I would definitely want. Imagine my shock first time I visited your channel, thinking you're a cowboy and you were talking about punk rock in a British accent. I'm a very weird individual because I am multicultural. You know, all mainstream media annoys me too. I do watch some news shows, certain channels on YouTube for my news. Uh, I don't really pay attention much to mainstream media. I mean, mainstream news media. I'd be honest though. I guess if I did have to trust someone, it would probably be CNN or MSNBC. But I still think they're just as corrupt as everything else, just not as corrupt as Fox News. So, you know, I instead get my news from certain YouTube channels. And I don't watch much of it because life is too hard. Life is too upsetting and difficult as it is right now without adding more stress and anxiety on you. It's best to just sit in your house and have a good time. Yeah, you know? But yeah, like I was saying, Miss C, I am multicultural. So having been raised 6 months, 6 months here and 6 months in Blackpool and Ireland, that means that I have been influenced by a lot of different cultures and a lot of different mindsets. Because I can tell you right now, there is a huge difference between an estate in Blackpool and small town in Florida. There is really a huge difference of how people look at the world and how people live and the way that they think on a daily basis about themselves and their neighbors and their government and just the overall way. So having been raised with all of these different influences, it formed me into a unique person that is not restricted to the area that I grew up. You see what I mean? If you grow up in one area, surrounded by one culture group, surrounded by one family, and you actually mature your formative years in that environment, it can stunt your emotional and psychological growth. And you then have to repair that damage when you go off to college or you become an adult and have different friends or move away. You have to repair the damage done by never having any outside influences to shake the foundations of what you were inundated with as a child. So I'm very happy about that because I got to be raised in an estate in Blackpool and I got to see all the things that were around there and Ireland and Florida. So, and one side of my family is lower middle class. My dad and his family were middle class, and my mom's family were wealthy. Like they have two condos on Panama City Beach. So, yeah, they couldn't just have one condo in a fancy condominium called Pinnacle Port. She didn't just have one. She had a condo on the first floor and a condo on the third floor uh, for her to hold her benefits and hold her parties, and her events. And then the family lived on the first floor. So I've been around poor people. I've been around working class people. I've been around rich people. Um, all kinds of musical influences, mainly heavy metal on one side and bluegrass on the other. Um, Cultural differences. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with the way I turned out mentally. You know, um, and that's why I don't put up with a lot of shit from the government and the way people think and the way people talk. I see so much beyond that, and it seems both the right wing and the left wing are unable to see beyond their bubble because that's the way they were raised, is to stay in your bubble. So they don't actually find out any common ground with anyone or change their views. Missy says, yeah, I get it. Given how I was raised, it's a wonder I grew up open minded. My mom and her side of the family are racist. My grandfather was the Grand Dragon of this area's Ku Klux Klan. So, one of the funniest stories about my childhood was I found the Grand Dragon uniform. I was about 7 years old, 8 years old, and I didn't know what it was other than having seen it at events, but I didn't know what it was, and I thought it was cool. So I put it on, the big pointy hat and everything, and it was like 4:30 in the afternoon, and I went walking down the middle of the street, my street, at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I was having to hold, I mean, just I'm a little 8-year-old kid, and I'm having to hold up this Klan uniform off the ground as I walk, and I could barely see out of the eye holes of the thing. And I'm walking down to the end of the street of the block, and I hear cars honking and stuff like that, but I don't know. I get towards the end of the block, and I hear this really high pitched scream kind of thing. And I looked to the side to see where that scream was coming from. And all of the sudden, I seen, because my grandparents lived up here, and down here lived my dad. And I looked that way, and I saw the front screen door of me dad's house come flying off out into the yard. And I just kind of stopped and I stared because I'm like, the fuck was that? The whole screen door just went 10 feet out into the yard. And right behind it came my dad. And he was in like a full run, and his knees were hitting his chest. He was running so fast that he got to me and he swept me up, turned a U turn, and was running back home without ever stopping. That's how scared he was. And I didn't know what was going on. And when we got back into the house, his house, he fell to his knees and he jerked the hat off me head and he started just like yelling, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And I had no idea what had just happened. And he was saying stuff like, "Oh my God, somebody could have killed you. Don't you understand? Somebody could have killed you." And I had no idea what he was talking about. So, Miss C, what you think about being raised in a family like that? Okay. Um, Needless to say, those outfits disappeared, and I was never taken to any more meetings. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I was definitely raised with a lot of influences, different ways, but I ended up being a lefty progressive after all of that. So who knows? But I think it was because of my mom's side of the family and being influenced by all of the things that I was. So, what's some interesting personal time? You're just getting all of my secrets out of me, yeah? Yes, I'm a cowboy. Now I got to hang it back up. So, well, we turned a 20-minute review of Reflections in a Golden Eye into an hour and a half breaking out my secrets. No, they're not secrets, or I wouldn't have told them. Believe it or not, I don't keep anything secret, to tell you the truth. That's why my Facebook's open to the public. They weren't that bad. They didn't do anything. I mean, I can only go by my own experience. I think it's just according to whatever people are involved in that particular group and what they're doing. But mine, you know, my granddaddy's, I never saw anything. My grand's, I never saw anything bad. So I didn't, I never heard anything bad either, believe it or not. I never heard the N word or anything. I never heard the N word at Clan Met. I mean, but then again, I was a kid. Like I said, I never went to another one after age 8 because of that incident. I don't know. It just looked like a wizard. If you think about it, I was 8 years old. It just looked like a really colorful wizard because it wasn't just white. Remember, I said Grand Dragon. So it wasn't just white. There were all these patches and green and the big cross and stuff. So it was actually a Grand Dragon uniform, not a regular uniform. So it wasn't just white. So it just looked like a big fancy wizard from The Hobbit. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know there was anything wrong with what I was doing. Needless to say, um, I never saw those again, and I imagine that they were very afraid after that, that my mother's side of the family, who was hippies, rich hippies, who had always threatened to take me away from them, um, I think they were afraid of like me telling about certain things. I'm not sure. That's what I think as an adult. I think that during that time of my life, uh, that they were very concerned that if my mother's side of the family found out some of those things, that they would take me away from them and I would never see them. They wouldn't even get the 6 months they got with me. So, but to me, it's a very funny story. I know that people like are like, WTF, man. Oh my God. But I was 8 years old. It was very funny. I'd never seen a human being run that fast. I'd never seen somebody be able to run and their knees hit their chest. And my dad really impressed me because how you can pick up an 8 year old and make a U turn and still stay in the exact same pace and run. Come on, that's funny. Uh, and he won't even talk about it to this day if I make fun of him, and I'm like, hey, can you pick me up like that again, and he's like, he won't talk about it. He's just like, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. So I think I scared the shit out of him. And now that I'm an adult, of course, I know how scary that was, how dangerous that was. But as a kid, it was just a really funny event. It's like one of the funniest stories of my childhood, which there's a lot of them. But I guess I should close this out, right? Before it gets too long. But I really enjoyed seeing Caleb and Miss C hanging out. If you've never seen this movie, you should see this movie, Reflection in a Golden Eye. And I am looking forward to doing the Scream series. I told you, Miss C, that I don't feel good, so I haven't filmed my stuff. It's just that a while ago, I noticed that I felt good, and I was like, why don't you jump on and do some kind of content, until I can film? I'm going to do the Scream franchise. And for anybody who watches this who is wondering where the fuck my last two, uh, no problem, Caleb. It's like I told several people, I really like listening to you. I love a chatty person like you. But uh, like I told Missy earlier, um, there's probably some of you who watch me for my music who are wondering where the fuck is my last two Nightwish songs of my top 10. I knocked one of my 20-year-old JPL speakers off the computer. And when I picked it up and put it back on the thing, I literally had to start crying because it had ripped the woofer. And so my 20-year-old JPL speakers finally went to stereo heaven. Okay. So I have to wait for a new pair of speakers to come in that is acceptable to me, which took me a long time to find them. I have to find a new pair of speakers. I have to wait for them to come in before I can do any more music. So I will get to number two and number one. Um, yes, I know Miss C don't like heavy metal. She likes that other stuff that I won't discuss. But see, Caleb, that's what we were talking about. Me and Miss C get along really, really well, and she likes a type of music I I want to grab a crucifix and go back, demon, back. um, Whereas she doesn't really care for heavy metal, so you know, you don't have to agree with everything. But check this movie out if you can. For those who are waiting for my Nightwish and more music, I have to wait for the speakers to come. I can't remember the name of the speakers I bought, but they were nice, big, like the JPLs, and hopefully they will be good. And hopefully I can film my discussions and reviews of the Scream series in celebration of its new thing. No, it's that bad. Uh, it's okay to hate stuff that you literally hate. Um, I cannot stand now. There's a group. from my teen years called Cypress Hill, Mississippi. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Um, I actually like Cypress Hill, and that's it. I actually hate rap and hip hop. I can't stand it. It 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 it's like listening to opera. Yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it. I just can't do it. However, I do like Cypress Hill. So, there's an exception. Classic rock and movie soundtracks. Classic rock, like Fleetwood Mac, which is my favorite um, plain rock band ever, is Fleetwood Mac, and I love the Monkees. I've got all the Monkees CDs. You're either a Beatles person or a Monkees person. I'm a Monkees person. I like the Monkees. Hey, hey, with the Monkees. I love the Monkees. I've got all of their albums. I don't have any Beatles albums, so that just goes to show you. Um, but I love classic rock, and I love hair metal. I love heavy metal, traditional metal. I love punk, pop punk, post punk, grunge, hard, aggressive rock. But yeah, I love classic rock. Movie soundtracks. Do I have any movie soundtracks? Yeah, I've got the soundtrack of heavy metal, the cartoon, the animated movie Heavy Metal. I love the soundtrack to that movie. I also have the soundtrack to Rock and Roll, which is another animated movie. Um, the reason I don't have a lot of movie soundtracks is because they're always mixed. There'll be a rock song and a piano ballad and a jazz song, and I'm just not, you know, Kansas. Carry On Our Wayward Son is from Kansas, the band Kansas. Credence Clearwater Revival. I like hippie music a lot. Like I was raised on hippie music, like Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, Credence Clearwater Revival. Yes, I was raised on the Eagles, um, but I love hippie music, and that's what I was raised on. On one side of the family, I was raised on hardcore Appalachian bluegrass, and on the other side, I was raised on rock and roll. The first concert I ever went to was a Kiss concert. The first three albums I had when I turned 11, or 12, 11. Yeah. When I turned 11, my grandmother, she bought me Pat Benatar in the Heat of the Night, Blondie Parallel Lines, and Kiss Love Gun. Those were the first three albums that my little 11-year-old rock self ever owned. And I have been a punk rock heavy metaler ever since. So there you go. But I'm really glad you two showed up and taught. And I actually didn't expect anyone to come in. I was just going to do a review of that and go on to have something to do and to put some content on there. Credence Clearwater kicks ass. Um, Fortunate Son, that's my favorite song by them. It ain't me. That's my favorite song by Credence Clearwater. But yeah, I didn't expect anybody to come on. I was just going to do some content, and you two popped in. I appreciate it very much. You got secrets out of me. I can't stand that because I am like you, Caleb, or maybe your dad, or maybe other people. But I'm one of those. If you get me talking, I will just say shit I shouldn't say, probably. Now I'm going to be accused of being an ex Klan member or something. I was a child. So, uh, yeah. Da, 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 da. I've got that. I've got that. I've got the extended version of that right there on my playlist. I also love Valley Girl music. Oh, that's another soundtrack that I have. The soundtrack of Valley Girl with Nicolas Cage. I love new wave. Yes, the Go Go's. There you go. The Go Go's. But the breakup song, I was just listening to that a couple of days ago because I've got the extended version on one of my playlists in my channel. If you look in my channel, at my playlist, I think there's a playlist called Classic Rock Bangers. I think that's the name of the playlist. It's got the extended version of the breakup song, the full version from the album, instead of the edited radio version. It's got the full version on that thing. So if you look up, if you like classic rock, you should look at that playlist, the Classic Rock Bangers. Those are songs from the 70s and the 80s that fit exactly what you're talking about, the breakup song. So, yeah, I'm very diverse. I have a very diverse personality, but I'm a bitch, okay? I admit that right out the gate. I'm a total bitch because I've lived honestly. I'm not a bad person. I've never been to jail. I've never had a speeding ticket. Um, Straight edge. This fire burns. Straight edge. I don't remember. I don't. I don't know that. I don't know that song, or it doesn't come to mind. Probably I would if I heard it. But yeah, I am a very I'm a total bitch. I admit that. But I'm very nice. I mean, to get the bitch to come out, you got to really threaten me. You got to really do something to make it come out. But it's there and waiting. But you know, I just don't have room for it. Life is too short and life is too hard and lonely and all the other things that you can experience to, you know, put up with a bunch of stress and anxiety, you know. So I don't put up with it. If I'm attacked or mistreated or anything like online or something, I will quickly send you on your way. Ooh, WWE. That's Miss C's thing or something. You don't want to hear what I think of that kind of wrestling. Now I do like the gladiator stuff. The other one, MMA. The I do like that. Mixed martial arts. I just watched The Raid and The Raid 2. Those are the two best action movies that I have ever seen. And MMA, you know, what is that? EFC? Is that what it's called? The EFC? I do like watching the EFC. Um, I do get into that. Um, but I'm British, so I like football, which is soccer, which I'll call soccer. And I do like rugby and I like tennis. But I don't like American sports at all, and I do not like WWE style wrestling. I do like, you know, the EFC and MMA though. If you're gonna fight, I want to see real fight. You know, I could have I could see myself being a Ludus owner in you know, Spartacus Gladiator times. I would do that, but I think that WWE is fake. And I'm like, why don't you just admit that you want to see guys beat the crap out of each other like gladiators? So why don't you just go and watch that? And that's why I like the EFC or MMA, whatever the MMA circuit, because that's real. And if I'm going to watch guys beat the hell out of each other, I want it to be real. and I want to admit that I like watching someone fight instead of, playing that kind of stuff. Oh God, the cult of personality. Yes. Uh, and you say I'm tired, so I'm forgetting their names. I've got that CD, Cult of Personality. It's by a black, all black, extremely hard, it crosses into metal. Cult of Personality. I've got the CD over there. Wrong keyboard. Living Color. That's the name of the group. But I like dance music. I just don't like rap and hip hop. But I like dance music. I like Janet Jackson. I like Paula Abdul. I like all the 80s stuff. I absolutely love. Get this. I'm a heavy metalhead, but I absolutely adore, Never Gonna Give You Up. I love Rick Astley. I've got all of his albums. I absolutely love him. So, see, that's what I'm saying. People can surprise you if you sit down and talk with them and you find out that I might be a punk rock heavy metaler, but it doesn't mean anything. You just have to, if you sit and talk, you find out that people are different than what you think. It was really fun to see you too, Caleb. I'm going to, and I will see you on your next stream. I'm interested to see how it goes. And Miss C, thank you for being here as well. I'm going to go and watch probably First Amendment audits again because they relax me for some reason. And maybe watch Scream. I might go watch Scream so I can finally film a review of it tomorrow. But for those who stayed past the 20-minute review of this movie, this was just a review of this movie that turned into a chat. I love Lenny Kravitz. I love him in the Hunger Games, um, and I love his music. Um, what's my favorite song by Lenny Kravitz? Um, Are You Gonna Go My Way? It sounds so much like Jimi Hendrix. No, Lenny Kravitz is not rap or hip hop. He is rock and roll. And Are You Gonna Go My Way sounds so 1979. It's my favorite song by Lenny Kravitz is Are You Gonna Go My Way? So look that up if you haven't heard it. Thanks for sitting up late at night with me, Miss C. And I am going to log off and close this out. Should take 2 days for YouTube to process the damn thing. But for those who stayed past the movie review, it was just a 20-minute movie review. You could stop it there, or you could listen to us talk all kinds of crazy shit about the industry and music and my very, very interesting childhood that they should make a movie out of, in my opinion. I just don't know what cute little redhead they could get to play me. Yeah, that would be the big thing. He's got to be Irish and British mixed, okay? But that is a very good cover. Yes. Lenny Kravitz is very good. See, we can find things to agree about musically. I love Lenny Kravitz. So there you go. See, we could sit and listen to Lenny Kravitz album. You might not could listen to a Metallica album with me, but we could listen to a Lenny Kravitz album. So people can always find something as long as they don't have like major moral differences. Um, as long as their views aren't extreme, um, little things are fine. That's what I was going to say earlier. Is if you have extreme views, then you can't expect people to be friendly to extremity. That's a little unfair to tell me that I'm not a good person because I won't sit down to dinner and, to buy a pizza and watch some movies with a Nazi. That's not fair to me to tell me that I'm a bad person, and because I won't do that, you know. Well, you're a bad person if you won't coexist with a Nazi. Why can't I bring over this Aryan Brotherhood member and we get some pizza and put our differences aside and watch some movies? That's not going to work because that's a very extreme thing. However, if you tell me you're bringing a friend over for pizza and to watch some movies and they hate the covenant and think the craft is a masterpiece, and I say I like the craft, it's a fantastic movie, but it's not a masterpiece. The covenant is a masterpiece. We disagree, but that's on tangible things. I would be a bad person if I told you couldn't bring your friend because he hates one of my favorite movies. That's stupid. But to call me bad because you want to bring your friend who is a Nazi fascist, that's not very fair. So that thing about people should get along and respect each other's views. Well, sure, I can respect your view that The Covenant is a crappy movie. I cannot respect your view that a whole culture group of people should be killed. There's a big difference there. So there is a limit to expecting people to get along and appreciate someone else's opinions. I'm just sorry. If you think the Holocaust didn't happen, I'm not going to give you any leeway with that. We're not going to agree to disagree that the earth is flat. There you go. On that issue, let's just break it down to that. We are not going to agree to disagree, and I respect your opinion that the earth is flat. That's not the way it works. Um, it's wrong. It's extreme. It's not true. I'm not going to prop you up by sitting and eating pizza with you and telling you that it's okay to think that because it's not. The earth is not flat. It's just that. So I can respect your opinion about you hate Metallica and the Covenant, and any other opinions about how to decrease the deficit. We can disagree about pretty much anything, but if it gets to extreme harmful beliefs, I'm not going to agree to disagree. So there you go. You're still waiting for a Price album review? Oh, you mean Prince? I caught that because I was like, a Price? You mean Prince? Okay. Yeah, I can do that. I can do some. Yeah, I can do some Prince songs. I mean, I'm not just going to do heavy metal. Yeah, that's what I was saying is I will generally respect any opinions as long as isn't extreme. I mean, come on, I'm not going to. I that would be wrong of me. It would be morally wrong of me to agree to disagree and be your friend if you thought the Holocaust didn't happen or that all a certain race or a certain culture group should be imprisoned or killed or was inferior. If you've got extreme beliefs, I'm not a bad person for not propping you up. and I'm not going to respect your opinion like that. Yeah, I will do some. I'll do some Prince songs. I'll perform some Prince songs. You know what I mean by perform is react to them. But yeah, I'll do other things besides just heavy metal. I'm gonna do grunge and rock and just songs that I love, and I do plan on doing that. I was going to freak people out by doing some Rick Astley. So yeah, I'll do other forms of music. But yeah. So it's 2 hours. I think it's the longest one I've ever done, and it all started out with just a 20-minute movie review. So sorry for those, but it's your fault. You can turn it off after 20 minutes if you just want a review of this movie. Otherwise, you can hear us talk about all kind of personal stuff. But I'll see you tomorrow, Miss C, or something. When is Thanksgiving? It's Thursday. Okay, this is Wednesday. I don't even. It doesn't matter to me. But happy Thanksgiving to anyone who is watching this. And happy Thanksgiving, Miss C. Have a good time with anybody that you have around you. I will be Zoom eating with me boys, and that's what I'll be doing. And then I will watch movies. So I will see y'all all later. Thanks for tuning in. Reflections in a Golden Eye, Elizabeth Taylor, Marlon Brando, Yummy, 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 one of the best classic movies ever made, one of Elizabeth Taylor's best, one of Marlon Brando's best. And I will see you all later. Yes, I talk too much. I talk too much too. And then regret it later, yeah? But I will see you later. See? And have a good Thanksgiving and go to sleep. You need it. I won't be going to sleep for about 6 hours because my sleeping is rolling around. See you all later. Thanks for tuning in. I will be doing the Scream franchise as soon as I can get my butt to film them, which should be in the next day or two. Stay cool, rock hard, don't hit your mic, rock hard, um, keep screaming, keep watching cool music. Watching cool music? I do need to get off here, don't I? Watching cool music. Watching blooper reel, watching cool movies, listening to cool music, and I've talked too much. I'm not drinking, I swear. I will talk to you all later. Thank you. Love you. Miss you. Bye.